Alright, so I want to go through a demonstration of how we can create an appointment system using PHP. And for this particular demonstration, the focus will be on collecting information from a form and then sending it to your email. Right? So as an example, let's say a doctor's office want an online appointment system. We can go ahead and use PHP to create this online system, this online appointment system, and have it send an email to the necessary person. Right? So that's what we'll be working on for this particular demonstration. All right, so there are a few things that I'll need to use to, create my online system to give it a nice little look. So the first thing that we're going to use is Bootstrap. So all I'm going to do is create an HTML form and then use Bootstrap to add some of the styling. Then to send the email, I'll be using the PHPMailer library to assist with that. And to set up PHPMailer in my application, I'm going to use Composer, which is a dependency manager for PHP. And then finally, I'm going to use Brevo as my SMTP server. Right, so for Brevo, all I need to do is create an account. Once you create an account, you can go to your dashboard, go to your profile, and then just click on SMTP and API, and you can create a new SMTP or set up your SMTP there where you can use Brevo as your SMTP server. Right, so Brevo for the SMTP server, Composer to install PHPMailer. So you just need to download Composer and install that. Alright, and then PHPMailer, which you can grab or read some more about it via this GitHub link. Alright, so in terms of PHPMailer on GitHub, it gives you the necessary information about it. It also has some sample code here that I'll be using and modifying in order to send my email from my appointment application. As I said, Bootstrap will be used to do some of the styling for my application. Right, so I have a folder created that I'm calling appointment app. So I'm going to open this folder in VS Code and then create my necessary files inside here. So the file for sending the email plus the file for my online application form. Alright, so in VS Code, I'm just going to click on open folder and then navigate to where my appointment app folder is. So I locate my folder, I'm just going to select that to open it inside VS Code, and then I can create my files inside here. So the first file I'm going to create is one called point, or I guess we can call it appointment. And I'm going to make this a PHP file. Alright, now I'm going to create my form inside here, and it's just going to be a regular HTML form. I'm going to go to Bootstrap and grab this link right here. Alright, so I can use that to help with the styling of my application. I'm going to write some CSS as well because I want to give my form a particular look where the form is on one side and then I add an image to the other side. So I'm going to basically share the screen in half. One side will have the form, the other side will have an image. Alright, so I'm going to add some additional CSS inside this particular file. So I'm going to open a style tag, and I'm going to add some personalized CSS to this particular style tag. Alright, so I defined a class called form container for the form that I'll be creating. Create another class called form of, which will style the half of the form where, sorry, the half of the screen where the form will be. And then I have another class called image half, which will style the other half where the image will be. And I'm going to include this image, right? So to include that image, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it IMG, and I'm just going to download an image and call it online payments. Alright, so I download the image and it's right here. So this is the image that I'll be using. Alright, so I would have set up my form as well. I'm going to create a file called email.php. So for the form, I'm setting the action attribute to a file called email.php, and I'm using a post method. So my form would have been fully set up. So let me just show you what this will look like. Alright, so this is what our online application is currently looking. So to the left, we have the form, and then to the right, I place the image. Right, so we have an input field for the date, another input field for the time, the purpose of the appointment, the sender's email, any additional message, and then our button that we'll click to make the appointment. So once we fill out this field and we click the make appointment button, it will send an email to the respective person telling them that a new appointment has been scheduled and who scheduled the appointment and the time of the appointment. Now, I did not validate this form using PHP, but I could have gone ahead and done that as well, and that makes sense to do your validation. But at the moment, this is not validated, right? Right. While this part isn't terribly important, I added an icon here as well. So whenever this is open in the browser, you will see the icon at the top here. So that is something that you can do as well, just to give your form a nice little, well, to give your page a nice professional look with the icon at the top. I like to see it. All right, so at this point, I'm going to set up Composer. Well, I'm going to use Composer to install and set up the PHPMailer library in this particular project. Now, I did mention that I am using this GitHub link as my guide to set up PHPMailer. I'm going to use this composer command right here to install the necessary library in my project, and then I'm going to copy this sample here and modify it to suit the purpose of what we're trying to achieve. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, to set up the PHPMailer library, I'm going to open a new terminal, Ensure I'm in the location where I want to be. All right. And I'm going to say composer require PHPMailer slash PHPMailer. Press enter, and that will install the necessary composer files that we will need. So for example, the composer.json, a vendor folder that contains the PHPMailer files or library that we need. Alright, so installing Composer is as simple as that, or including Composer in your project is as simple as that. So that part is completed. Now, what I need is to set up a PHP file and place this sample code in it. So I'm just going to copy this, go back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to create a new file, and I need to be careful where I place the file. The file must be created in the root of my project and nowhere else. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it email.php. Alright, and I'm going to paste the code that I copied from GitHub here. Now, some things we need to specify. We need to set the host, and for that I am using Brevo. So I'm going to use smtp relay.brevo.com as my host. So I'm going to paste that here. Right, I'm going to place the email address that is tied to this Brevo account as well. So I'm going to type that here. And I'm going to place my password here as well. So that password I can get from right here. So I'm going to place this password here also, right? Note as well the port number should be 587, and as a reference you can see the port number right here, 587. Alright, now usually for my encryption I set this to start with TLS. Alright, so that's what I'm using for there. Alright, now before I go any further, I want to include in this file reference to these input elements. So I want to make reference to these input elements in my email file. Alright, so I'm going to make reference to them here. Alright, so I've made some modification to the file that I copied from GitHub. I have this if statement here that is waiting for us to click our button right here. Now, once we enter the input into the form, so for example, once we set a date, that will be stored inside this variable here. Using the post method, it will get what was entered, store it inside a variable, and I did the same for all the different input, right? So that's basically that. Here an instance of the PHPMailer class was created. So we're essentially creating an object here for the PHPMailer class, and I set the debug to 0, which is essentially turning off the debugging output. Um, Here, as I showed before, I use Brevo as my SMTP server or as my host in this case, or as stated here. This is the email that I'm using and password that is tied to this Brevo account. I place it here, right? Now, outside of that, I am stating which email is my from address, and I'm also stating that it's coming from the appointment application, right? Which once the email is sent, you'll see that it's coming from the appointment application. Now this is saying where I want it to go to. So I want it to go to this email address, and I'm saying that we're sending it to Dr. Brown. After that, I just set up the body and the subject for the email. So the subject is that a new appointment has been set. So new appointment. Then here it says you have a new appointment, which coming from. So the sender email I passed there, the date of the appointment, the time, the purpose, and the additional message. And if that is sent successfully, then it will echo this message saying that saying that appointment details have been successfully sent. If there's any issue, then this error message will be shown along with what the specific error information is. So again, for most of this, all I did was modify it to accept the input from the form, modify it with my SMTP server that I'm using, the from address where I want it to go to, and the body of the email along with the subject, and that's it basically. All right, so now we can go ahead and test out this appointment application. All right, just a quick reminder before we run our test out application. Just remember to place in your action a reference to this email file right here, and also to set your method to post. All right, let's go ahead and attempt to set an appointment. All right, so let's say you want the appointment for 30th, and the time, let's say for 7. All right, let's do 4:54 p.m. Purpose of the appointment is a follow. Let's say it's coming from this email address, or that person is the sender. And what we could have done here as well is maybe take the sender's name versus taking their email. But for now, we'll just work with email. And I can say following up on my last appointment. All right, so now we can just click send and see if our email was successfully sent. All right, so it is telling us that the appointment details have been sent successfully. So what I'll do is I will go to this email address. So it says add address. That's the email address that the email is going to. Right, so I'm going to check that email address to see if the appointment was sent successfully. All right, so I am in this particular email address now, and it says new appointment, and it says that this is the date and the time of the appointment. Purpose is a follow, and we are following up on the last appointment. It says appointment up, so this tells us that it's coming from our appointment application, and it gave us some other details, which going to Dr. Brown at that email address. It's a new appointment. That's the subject right here. And so the email was sent successfully. All right, so hopefully that would have been somewhat helpful in terms of using PHP and PHPMailer to send your email through an appointment form or through any other form that you'd want to set up, maybe a contact us form or any similar application. Right. Right, so that's basically it. You can go ahead and test this out for yourself. Create your form, set up your PHP mailer library in your project, and create your email file to basically see if you are able to send your email via PHP. And you can go to the different parts of this video, get the code that is there. Um, I'll place a link to the GitHub where you can grab the sample code and you can always modify it. I might just place a link as well to this particular email code that I use, and if you just modify it and use it accordingly. All right, so that is it for this demonstration.